If you had to tell one story that summed up who you were as a person, who you are for sure as a person, tell that story.
When I wake up every morning, I try and be more efficient than I was yesterday, and I try and be less of a piece of shit than I was yesterday. So if I can get answers to those two questions, I come out a better person at the end of it.
You can't put people in buckets, right? We all are a culmination of our experiences in our past and stuff like that, but we all have a brain, which kind of makes it hard for us to put anyone in a bucket because everyone is vastly different.
Welcome to No Universal Answers to the Universe, a video podcast and interview series with Taylor Hall and Kenneth Givens. Tonight, our guest is Mitch Budihas. Mitch, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Taylor. How you guys doing, Kenneth? You too?
Good. So Mitch, like we said a few minutes ago before we started, if you just kind of want to give us a brief overview of what you've been up to since college, kind of tell us where you went to college, what you went to college for, and what you've been up to since.
Yeah, of course. So went to KU while I was at fall. Continued to go there after I got done. Graduated May of 17. I got a double bachelor's of arts in political science and history. And then following that graduation, I commissioned to the United States Army as an infantry officer.
All right. And you're still in the Army currently?
Yeah, I've been here for 2.5 years now. I'm loving it.
That's awesome. We obviously appreciate your service. What made you want to pursue that career path?
So I grew up in the military. My dad's in still. From a very young age, I knew I wanted to serve my country somehow, whether it be through government service, not necessarily the military, but working for the government in some capacity, or joining the military. And then when I was going through high school, exploring my options, I ended up actually stumbling upon the ROTC scholarship and got that for 3.5 years to go ahead and pay for my college. So almost stumbled my way into the service.
That's actually pretty awesome. How does the whole ROTC scholarship and the government paying for your school and stuff, like, how does that work? How's that different from what you hear about other people getting, like, I guess, civilian scholarships?
So it's a little bit different. The prerequisites are a little bit different. For ROTC, to get the scholarship, you have to go and take a physical fitness test before you start and apply. So they'll take your scores, compare them against other general 17, 18-year-olds that are applying for it. And then you'll kind of get what we call racked and stacked. They'll take everyone who's applying and put you in a list in order of how they want to disperse the scholarships, which is probably similar to most regular scholarship opportunities, at least from when I was applying. You send in your little essay saying, hey, why do I want to be eligible, and or why am I eligible, and I would like to be considered for the scholarship. And then they take it up to the committee, they read it, they deliberate on it, and they decide how they want to disperse the money. So it's kind of similar. It's probably one of the biggest ways, though, that the government gets into the officer corps. They give out scholarships for 2 years even, just to get people to come join the military, and they'll help pay for your college.
Okay. So when you were going through that process, in your mind, was there ever like I don't want to say a backup, but was there something else that you were pursuing, or were you pretty much dead set on this?
So I was pretty much dead set on this, but in the back of my mind, I was exploring some other options. Say if I didn't go active duty, went to the National Guard from college, and then had to go find another job to sustain myself on the backside. So I was exploring some of those other governmental agencies, working for some of the state agencies, because as a political science major, I spent a lot of time working with like state senate. I did an internship there, which was a lot of fun, and I got to learn more about how like local governments work.
Okay. And when you were going into this from a branch perspective, you said your dad's in the military. Is he in the Army as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the longest time, I thought I wanted to be a Marine. Go ahead and put that out there. I thought I wanted to be one of the rough and tough Marines, cut from the green cloth. And then the more I looked into it, the more the Army started to fit kind of what I wanted to do.
Okay.
The job that I wanted to do seemed a little bit, I wouldn't say easier to attain in the Army, but it kind of was. The places I wanted to go were definitely more available in the Army versus the Marine Corps. And then the Air Force, I thought was never going to be an option. Never thought I was smart enough, but they also didn't have the job I wanted either. So that's kind of how I steered away from that.
Okay. And where do they have you stationed currently?
So I'm stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia currently. It's in Columbus, Georgia, right down south of Atlanta.
Yeah, you're not from. I'm in Columbia right now currently,
yeah.
and I grew up in Augusta, so I know all about Georgia. So I'm sure it's pretty hot there when you guys are running drills and stuff, especially for the last couple months.
Yeah, no, this is the hottest month of the year. That's for sure. And get up there 100, 110 easily during the week. Brutal.
So from a civilian perspective, it's always been presented to me there's two ways to go to college and be in the service. You can either go the route you took to go ROTC to college to officer, or you can go straight to the service and have them pay for it afterwards when you go to college later on. What incentivized the direction that you took with that?
So from what I understand about it, the second option, it's a little bit different. You go to college, get your degree, and then after that is when you decide you want to join the service, and then you can go in and you can be enlisted on more of the side where there is leadership, but you're mainly the guys being able to do. Or you can go into the officer candidate school, and then essentially it's a compact version of ROTC or one of the service academies, and you come out of that with your commission. The first part of it, I think I went the way I did because I didn't want to take a year off before going to college, so that I would keep myself on track, and then getting that scholarship definitely steered me into that, going straight away into college and then staying in ROTC instead of coming out of it and focusing on doing something maybe just a little bit harder as a major, and then trying to go afterwards into the service.
So what's the primary difference between like a day in the life of an ROTC officer in school and what you do on a daily basis, or what you did at least when you first started outside of school?
Yeah, so ROTC, your day-to-day, you'll probably wake up early, kind of like we still do now. You'll go do your physical fitness training in the morning with everyone else. Usually it's at like 6 in the morning to 7. And you'll go, and for the rest of the day, generally, for ROTC, you're free. You're going to your classes, or you're going to work if you have a job, or going to an internship if you have one of those. And then you might have an ROTC class that you go to where you have to show up and dress in uniform. But that's mainly just once a week that you do that. So for most ROTC programs, you just show up for fitness training in the morning, and that's in uniform. You're free for the rest of the day, unless you have stuff to do for the program. And then you usually, generally on Thursdays, is when you're going to be wearing your uniform all day. You're going to be going around campus in uniform because you have your leadership lab, which is a little taste of going into the field and doing some exercises to kind of give you a little preview of what the military is like.
Okay. And then obviously from the perspective that you're in now, you know, you have a full day of I guess, quote unquote, work after you go through your physical training in the morning.
Yep. So you get up same time. Physical training is still at 6 in the morning, so generally about 7:30. And you release. You get to go home, or if you want, or you can go over to the showers in the unit. You can shower, go get some breakfast, and then you just got to be back at 09 for the work call, which is generally when work starts for the day. And it's all dependent on kind of what you're doing for your taskings. Depending on if you're going to the field, then it might change. You might be up super early at like 3 in the morning to get all your stuff and go out to the training area. Or it could just be like a general office job. You show up at 9, and then you break at 12 for lunch, come back at 1, and then you're generally working from 1 to 5, and then you're done for the day.
My experience on the military base is I had to do some community service on base when I was in high school. And so we went out there during the summer and spent like a little over 2 weeks mowing, just straight up mowing. It was like me,
Yeah.
one other kid. I was 17. The other kid was like 13 or 14, and then there was like, I don't know, probably 10 or 11 guys that were like Army detail. I don't know what position or rank or anything like that, but we literally just went out there and mowed like all day. And
Yeah.
when we did that, it was crazy. Like I would like strip down to like where I took my shirt off or whatever I was mowing, and then of course everyone that was there had to be in full uniform. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's hot in Augusta, Georgia at Fort Gordon. It is hot. You know it.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's just different types of jobs, like you said, where they just have you doing a wide variety of things that need to get done throughout the day.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing is, like, everyone has their part in it. Like, everyone's got to do some hard labor. Everyone's got to mow the lawns. Like, I didn't think that I was going to be like, I thought I was high my A when I first got in as an officer. I was like, oh man, I'm never have to clean bathrooms again. I'm not going to have to mow the lawns. And then I get to my first training station and they're like, hey, we don't have any like lower enlisted privates or anything. You guys are the ones that are going to clean the bathrooms around here. Like, you guys are the ones that are sweeping and mopping the hallways. And I was like, all right, well, that's humbling.
Yeah.
So it's all there. Everyone does everything, which is the nice part about it.
Yeah. So do they put you guys like through the rotation so that it's not the same group of people doing the crappy jobs all the time?
Yeah. Unless you get a job in an office and then you do good work in the office and you get to stay in the office.
Okay. So for you, I know we're getting into this a little earlier than we normally do in our episodes, but like, what's your like 5 and 10 year goals in the military? Do you intend to be a long-term guy like your dad, or what's your goals?
I definitely want to go to at least a 10 and then reevaluate where I'm at. I think that would be a good point for me personally to reevaluate kind of like how I've done so far in the military and then see where the military is going with their next plan of action before I decide to be like, hey, I'm getting out. Because a lot of my peers right now, we're all sitting at 2.5, almost 3 years, and their guys are counting down the days for the next 2 years so they get out of the Army. It's kind of bad. And their retention rates are kind of bad, and everyone's not necessarily liking this new peacetime Army.
Right. I'm guessing there's a lot of sitting back. Now, I don't want to say sitting back and twiddling your thumbs, but I'm sure you're just doing a lot of the whatever, mowing lawns and desk work and stuff like that. It's not as much of what people see and what's glamorized, I would say, in Hollywood and the movies and stuff like that. Because everyone sees a Rambo movie and they're like, oh man, I want to be in the military, but that's not what it's cracked up to be, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on with that. There's a lot of more administrative actions we have to do. There's a lot of field training going on, but you might not be doing what you thought you were going to be doing. Like, everyone sees Black Hawk Down or Lone Survivor and like, I want to join the military. I want to do that.
Right.
Then you get in and you're not, next thing you know, you're sitting around waiting for 2 hours for the last guy to get there so you can leave for the field. And you're like, why am I doing this?
Right. So, you brought up a good point there about, having this, Hollywood image of what you're doing versus what it's actually like. Would you say that that's one of the reasons why there's a low retention rate?
I think that this is just a general problem, at least for my year group of officers, that we didn't start off meeting the number of officers we needed for the Army's mission. So a lot of more people in my positions are getting overworked quicker. So a lot of people are getting burnt out very quickly in the first 5 years and not necessarily getting the time that they need to mentally recover before coming back into the next part and getting thrown into the fire again.
So is that how the Army recruitment process works? Is it they set quotas for each level and they say, this is how many people we want to recruit this year? And I'm assuming it's based off of when people are eligible for retirement higher up and how they're, I guess, keeping a good track on the numbers, trying to keep them steady.
Yes, so you're pretty spot on. They set quotas for every month for the enlisted. How many people, because they look at the numbers, how many people are getting out this month? So how many people do you need to put into the Army? And then for the officers, they look at the next rank. So we have this many captain's positions that we need to fill, or that have this many lieutenant or major general positions this is how many we have. How do we get there? How do we fill the next rank? Either we have too little and we need to promote more people, or we have too many and we got to start cutting more people out.
Okay.
Now,
Did you have something to add to that, Taylor?
yeah, no, I wanted to unpack that a little bit because on the civilian side of things in private industry, if you're low on people, you sometimes can reach out to contractors and shorter term labor. Is that ever an option, or do you pretty much have to keep it inside the family and those recruitment numbers are the only way to really swell the ranks?
So that's a very good point that you bring up, Taylor. There's a lot of contractors for the military. A lot of guys see that they're more technical areas of the military, and they realize that these contractors are going to pay them a lot more money than the military is paying them to come back as a civilian worker and you get treated better, and then you get more money generally. So they're going to get out, and they're going to just be another number that gets part of the ranks out, and then they're going to come back as a contractor for a short term. Maybe it's a long-term contract. We got a couple of those, at least around Fort Benning. And then they're going to be that model for the next guy. Some other guy's going to run into the contractors and be like, that's a pretty good gig. I think I'm just going to wait till my contract's up and then get out and do that instead.
What kind of jobs? Taylor asked the question immediately. My mind, went to mercenaries, but I don't think it's that, right? It's something different, I would imagine. Like, what kind of jobs do these third-party contractors do?
So at least for Fort Benning, we have a weapons pool, which holds all the weapons for the post. We have contractors that do that. So they're the ones that fix the weapons when they come back to the centralized location. They're the ones that get them out to the units and everything. And they're the ones that are generally in charge of the maintenance for those so they don't explode during a training incident. Another one is we have a network enterprise center, and that's where a lot of the civilians are working around post. They're doing a lot of our network stuff because there's just a shortage of people with technical skills on some bases. I want to say all, but on some that are around that have the clearance or the job position to affect the network, and then a lot of it is transportation. A lot of contractors drive buses around the bases to go ahead and move people around to from units to training events, or just even as a shuttle on post to help people get around easier.
So quick question to that. Before we get too far into this, is there any of this information that we are going to have to delete out of our podcast?
No. This is all common knowledge stuff that you can find on Google.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't want to get you in any trouble or anything like that. So, okay. So the other point I wanted to bring up, because you're talking about Fort Benning and talking about ranks and how they bring in. So do people, or I mean not people, does the government recruit like by region and by area? Does it have like regional quotas, or is it kind of like across the board, we just need to hit this number regardless of where we're pulling from?
So I believe across the board is more of the way they're going about it.
Okay.
There is a big geographical recruitment, though. Not necessarily that it's being targeted, but that there is a large number of people coming out of the Southeast.
Right.
Generally Texas, Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina that are joining the military.
Okay. And then when you're on a base, so like you're at Fort Benning, and I'm for a civilian pretty familiar with Fort Gordon because I grew up there. How does it feel on your end? How the base itself is managed? Is it more like managed locally and they check in with higher ups, or is it like all orders get passed from the very top all the way down to the person who's whatever cleaning the bathrooms?
I would say it's a little bit of a mix in most cases. We have a 2-star general that is here, so he's got 2 out of the maximum of 4 that they can get right now because there's no war. He's not a combatant general, so he's not in charge of a combat unit. He's in charge of the training units around here, plus the 2 units that deploy, or the couple units that deploy from Fort Benning. So he'll get his orders from Training and Doctrine Command, which dictates how people are trained, and then how people are learned how to fight. Essentially, contract, but they make our publications. It's like our schoolhouse.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they'll do a lot of old testing. They'll look back in the history of how things were fought, and then they'll kind of take what they've learned from the past couple of years, formulate that into terms that everyone can understand, and push that down to us, even the lowest levels, so that everyone kind of understands the big picture. But your piece of the pie might not be a big slice. It might just be one of those tiny little slivers that you think you can't see anything outside of that, but you can get more information. It's about being a little more proactive is what it is. Sometimes you just gotta put your head down and get into your slice more, and some people forget that, which is how they think it's more localized, where they think that higher ups are just yelling down at you, but you can help affect what's going on at the lowest levels.
Okay. And then from a, I guess you mentioned that the general is a 2-star general, and that's as high as it can be, during non-war times. But do they still put a huge emphasis on like the big military training schools and stuff like that?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Schools are so important to the military. We want to get the best training for our soldiers. It isn't to help simulate combat, because the whole purpose of the military is to go out and destroy the enemies of the United States, at least for our country. There are a lot of missions that are involved that we do that are humanitarian that we train for, and there's a lot of things that we do for like nation building. We go out across the world and we assist other host nations building up their militaries to help be our allies. We help train other people so that they don't have like dictatorships running around as much as possible. So everything we can do in the schoolhouse and that we can replicate from the real world into it, the Army is placing a huge stock into that.
Okay. And for you, what's your current rank, if you don't mind asking?
I'm a first lieutenant right now.
Okay. So where does that kind of fall in line? I'm not familiar at all with the rank system.
Yeah. So when you commission in the Army, you become a second lieutenant, and then you go up from second to first lieutenant after about 18 months. So you get your feet wet. You learn how to be in the Army, and then you get promoted to the next rank. And that's really where you got the next 2.5 years to learn. And then you become a captain after that, if you get selected. And then, so you compete against all your peers for that one. And then you keep going up to major, and then lieutenant colonel, and then a full-bird colonel. And then after that is when you start getting to the general ranks.
Okay. So that's a long way away. I mean, for generals, yeah. Is this people that have been in the military for like 20 years, or is this more like a 15-year, or just basic run-of-the-mill?
So generally, you get about at 20 years is when you're looking at a full colonel.
Oh, okay.
Full colonel. If you're really on top of your stuff and you're getting promoted early, that's when you're generally looking at more advanced promotions. But at least from personal experience, my dad's been in 31 years now, and he's a senior colonel in the Army.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what is the limit of the number of years you can serve?
Generally, it's you can retire at 20.
Okay.
And then the maximum, I believe, is like 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of where they draw the line. You've been a general for years after that, and you're really looking at retirement usually after that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go right out of school, I mean, you're 62 years old. So, and that's in military years. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
The military ages you very quickly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Do you currently stay on campus? Like live on campus?
So like living on base? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live on base right now.
Okay. And like how's that process set up? I mean, I'm assuming it's free of charge, right?
So the Army pays you essentially a housing allowance for you, so you can go live off post if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of people do. They go find like a cheap apartment, and then they help pocket the rest of the money, or the rest of the money goes towards utilities and other things they can need. Or you can live on post. You don't get that housing allowance. It goes into the housing area or the management company that runs it, and then you essentially you're living in a house.
Okay.
I'm currently living in a 3-bedroom house, which is about I think it's almost 1,100 square feet for like 200 or not 100, but 1,100 some dollars right now.
Okay. And they'll put you in that house, but they don't. Do they put like other people in there with you since it's a 3-bedroom, or?
So you can elect to have roommates. I previously had 2 other roommates while we were all in the schoolhouse.
Okay.
Before everyone else started moving away after we were done with school.
Okay. So as far as you know, you have obviously all this military background, and you've been in the military and stuff like that. Do you have any hobbies on the side or things that you like to do in your free time?
Oh yeah, love my hobbies. I'm a very avid computer gamer or console gamer right now. I've had to limit myself. I'm a very big outdoor enthusiast. I just had my second knee surgery.
Oh wow.
I just recovering from that. So it used to be all about running and cycling, going out. Love hiking mountains. Used to love going up above Atlanta and just hanging out for the weekend. Go get lost in the people say get lost. I take that as a goal. I just want to go out in the woods and hang out. Bring some friends along. We can have like a campfire, hang out, and just relax.
Right. So what happened to your knee, man?
So I got injured during a training accident. I took a pretty hard fall during a night exercise, and partially tearing my patellar tendon twice.
Ouch. Same knee?
Yep, same knee.
Man, so how does that work in the military if you get injured like that?
So you get injured, and then you kind of come off of essentially doing the heavy duty stuff. You come more into, they try to push you more of an office role and keep you on light duty so you're not overexerting yourself and you're able to make your appointments that you have for your recovery, and then also like focus more on that recovery, because you are an asset to the military. They don't want to have to kick you out because you got hurt from one training exercise.
Right. Especially
Especially when you're just getting into the Army, they really want to hold you for that whole commitment that you have.
Okay. So obviously the recovery process. I tore my ACL, so it's a pretty harsh injury, especially for you being active and that's part of your job. Like, I mean, I tore it in school, but I imagine if I had tore something now, not a big deal because I sit behind a desk all day. But for you, I mean, you're obviously active. So, like mentally, did that affect you at all, both times or either time, or?
It definitely did. The second time I was definitely more prepared for it. The first time I didn't. I went into it and I was like, oh man, I'll be back to running like in 2 months. I'll be fine. Like, I'm gonna keep up with my peers still. I'll be like, I'm not gonna fall behind. And then it hits you mentally because you're watching all your peers go out and do all these things that you used to like doing with everyone. Like I had to stop running for the longest time, and then it was like, all right, now you gotta stop cycling, and then it's like, hey, you're not going to the field, so here's your office. You're going to be doing all this other administrative work, which is fine with me. I'd rather be doing administrative work than doing anything. I want to do my piece to help.
Right.
But you definitely, it gets a little low at points, and you just got to find the things that make it worth it.
Right. So for you, you bring me to my next point. For you, what is it that drives you, and what is it that makes it worth it?
I have, I guess, like an internalized sense of purpose and service. Like I want to help, like as much as I can't, I just want to do the maximum that I can. I want to take my piece of the pie and try and give it to as many people as possible and assist as many people as possible that I can. Like, I'm trying to help my boss as much as possible.
That's really impressive. I know that I've been friends with a lot of people in the military, and they don't always take that approach. So that's really refreshing to hear. Do you or have you been deployed for anything? And if you haven't, do you look for opportunities to be deployed for the humanitarian efforts as well? Or is that something that you're interested in?
Yeah, so I have not been deployed at all, and was supposed to go to a unit. We were going to go to Africa. We were going to go out there and help out with a couple different missions. We would go around East Africa, over in the Horn by Djibouti, Ethiopia, do a couple things there for a couple months, and we would have gone over to West Africa and help do some training over there, which is more on the humanitarian nation building side versus going to, say, Iraq or Afghanistan still and going into that combat type mission. So, currently, I can't because I'm still recovering from that second knee surgery. There's no possibility of me deploying anytime soon. But eventually, once I'm 100%, I would definitely love to get out and see some other part of the world and help bring not just the military part of it, but bring like American culture and then see someone else's culture and experience that.
Right. No, I can't imagine. So I currently work with somebody who was in the Marines. He wasn't in for very long at all, but he mentioned like, you know, it was the best whatever handful of years of his life because he got to go and see places and he was getting paid to be there. But he also got introduced to a lot of cultures and some like, you know, for him it was whatever 20 years ago, and he was like, man, it was really nerve-wracking because we're, you know, you always see all these views that other countries feel about us. He said he said it was absolutely not like that at all. He said everyone was very welcoming, everyone was very nice, and it was shell shocking because he was kind of on his heels when he went because he was very nervous, and so hopefully what you guys do is portrayed in the media. Sometimes that's not always the truth. Hopefully there's more people out there that see you guys for what you are and for what, you know, for the most part we do as a country, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I understand that feeling you went through. Obviously being a military kid, I had to change high schools in the middle of high school, and I went to Germany. So I had like a huge culture shock from that. Everyone tells you like, oh man, like people don't like Americans in Europe. They think we're all just tourists and we're dirty. And then you go there and the people, they're nice. They don't take to really, they don't read a book by its cover, as the saying goes. Right. They really try to get to know you. And then if you're acting like a stereotypical American, then they're going to call you out on it.
Right. What years were you over in Germany?
I was there from 2011 to 2013.
You just missed my friend. One of my best friends for life, Will, his dad was in the military, was a drill sergeant, and they went over to Germany in 2010 and 2011. He went to school there, but I think probably a half a dozen kids that I went to school with at one point in time or another were stationed in Germany. It seems like a pretty popular post.
You can't beat it. Someone's going to send you to Europe
Yeah.
You're going to live in Europe on the government's dime. You're going to get to go travel. You get to experience so many different cultures and see new things. Like I filled out my passport when I was there. We traveled around a lot as a family. I went to see everything from like going to England to all the way over to, I went to Turkey for a week. Got to experience a whole different other side of the world that I would have never thought I would have got to go see if it wasn't for that type of opportunity.
Yeah, you can't beat it, right? Getting paid to travel the world is amazing. My first job out of school, I got paid to travel the United States as a project manager in construction. And you know, the first couple places they sent me were I don't want to offend anybody, but were not so great. You know, there's a lot of like places, and it wasn't necessarily the state they were sending me to, but in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. When your closest Walmart's like, you know, an hour away and there's like one stoplight there, it's pretty rough. But then they sent me to California and I was like, man, I really love this, you know?
Yeah.
So, I've always wanted to travel the country. Is there any place that you haven't been to yet that you want to go to?
Definitely want to get out to see Asia more. My only excursion into Asia was going to Ankara and then Istanbul and Turkey. I'd love to try and get out to Korea or Japan and see kind of those different cultures, and then even get down to see like Australia and New Zealand, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, after being at camp, Australia is, for me, it's on my list, but I'm always nervous. Yeah, always nervous about everything that's there that's trying to kill you, you know?
The spiders, the snakes, and they're so nonchalant about it. They're always like, yeah, just come on, you can stay with us in Sydney. I'm like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they're like, oh, we only have 2 roommates. There's one spider and one snake. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're good.
So I'm gonna ask you the same question, Taylor. With you, I guess not being exposed as much to different places and different things like that. I know you're looking at moving to Boston, but is there any countries that you want to get out and see?
I'm in the minority probably on this, but I do not feel safe as an American outside of the domestic United States. I have no desire to leave our borders. And it's maybe just because I haven't even seen a good chunk of the U.S. I've never been farther west than Minnesota. I've never been farther north than Ohio. I'm when I find a spot, I'm good where I'm at, and I am definitely the minority on that.
There is nothing wrong with that either.
Right. I think a lot of people, and I didn't think about it until I started traveling the United States. Good God, the difference between the people in Georgia, where I grew up, and the people in California, or the people in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or the people in Utah, like it's like you're in 4 different countries. I mean, it's just, and I think people, I don't want to say sleep on the idea, but like people always, fantasize about traveling to Europe and stuff like that. I think there's a lot to see here in this country, and it's so big that there's multiple cultures within the same country.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, they moved around the U.S. all the time when I was a kid. Like, I was born in Bethesda, Maryland, and then the first place I lived after that, like a week later, was California.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I got to see everything. I've seen the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, the South, and even the up north in New York.
Where was your favorite place?
By far, it's definitely a tie between Hawaii and Germany.
Hawaii. Yep, that's on my list of places to travel to.
I would say it's an awesome place to visit. I don't know necessarily if you want to live there. Cost of living super expensive, and the people can be quite iffy when it comes to non-Pacific Islanders.
Yeah, they have a lot going on there now. In the news, talking about they're trying to like build some sort of observatory or something like that on one of the mountains.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of uproar, and there's like silent protesting and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Very rich history with a very big culture that didn't want to be dominated by the U.S. when we came, and it certainly fought back against it.
Right. And apparently even until now. So, I mean, they were one of the last states to join, weren't they?
Yep, I'm in Alaska.
Yep. Have you ever been to Alaska?
I haven't. I would jump at the opportunity to go to Alaska. I've heard so many great things about it there. If you can deal with the cold for a good chunk of the time, there's just so many great opportunities for the outdoors.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you have that, because I struggle, when I go to Virginia and stuff like that, go to DC for my job, and
You're a Georgia boy.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's a nice day out. It's 45 degrees, and I'm like, I got 2 jackets on. I'm like, oh man, you guys suck. So,
yeah, but then it's the opposite. You get those guys that come down here to Georgia or in the South, and they're like, man, it's dying outside. Like, we're wearing tank tops and flip flops, and it's like 70 degrees, and you're like, come on, man, it ain't even that hot yet.
Right. You just wait 2 more weeks.
Wait 2 more weeks. It's gonna be 100 degrees. You're gonna die. You're gonna melt.
Yeah, exactly. It gets so hot and muggy that you start breathing in, and it's like you're breathing in water. Like there's moisture in the air. You're like, oh my god, that's hilarious. So
you go outside and you're soaked in sweat just from walking outside.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you just like crack the door and you're like, all right, I'm shutting this back.
AC, thank you.
Yeah, Taylor's gonna have a good time up in Boston, because I hear that the summer's not too bad up there.
No,
See, I'm originally from Minneapolis, so I will be returning back to my roots, even if my blood is thinned out being in the South for quite some time.
He will wholeheartedly enjoy being up there in the cold.
Oh yeah. So real quick, what are some of your most successful moments? What would you consider are your aha moments, if you had to tell a story about some time when you really succeeded at something?
This one's actually, it's gonna sound a little cliche because it's you guys, but definitely. I had that summer I worked there, I had a couple aha moments, and I definitely learned a lot about myself and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and kind of how I wanted to guide it. But unfortunately for me, that was a little bit too late for at least college and the way that I was gonna go. but I learned a lot that like dealing with the kids day to day, and then being a mentor and teacher were some of the most fulfilling parts of my life so far. Getting to impact that many kids, that many boys in one summer was amazing.
What I think is overlooked too is the impact that we all had on each other.
That is true. A lot of like, I don't know, it was so weird for me. It was my first summer, and then like after June camp, next thing I know, was like giving me Reed, and he's like, hey, teach Reed how to be a counselor. And I'm like, I'm new here. Why am I teaching him how to do this? I was like, why don't you give him to like Harry or
right.
give him to Winston? Like Winston's been around.
Right.
Like Cole do it. He'll figure it out.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I don't know how they do it, and to this day it amazes me. Like now it's obviously fallen into different people's hands, but when I was recruited by and when like he would sit down and have these conversations with you, it was like he saw right through you to your core. Like there was no hiding anything from him. He knew who you were as a person. Yeah. Even like when you tried to hide it, even when you tried to hide the good things about yourself, like
something after this.
Though that's a scary thing for you to say that, because he came to my school and he pointed at me at a job recruiting fair and he says, you look like a hacker. I need a hacker. And that's when he hired me.
And it couldn't be like more accurate, could it?
Yeah.
For me,
next thing you know, Taylor is over here running the whole IT for all of camp.
Right.
Yeah. No, because I've never had someone approach me at a job fair before. It was the first time. He literally just got me out of a crowd and says, your name tag says computer science. You're coming with me. I had no choice in the matter.
Yep.
For me, I got introduced through Zach, because Zach was our randomly assigned roommate sophomore year. Excuse me. And when he introduced me to, we talked. There wasn't really, you're supposed to interview, right? But it was just like, it felt like a conversation. Like we went out or whatever for some food or something. And then he's like, I think you have the right set of skills and the right mindset, and you have the knack of being a leader. We want you to come to camp, you'll fit right in. And then I remember my first day of training, right? You get there, we're standing in this big circle in the upper lot, and we're doing this game where you tell like your name, where you're from, and like what you do. And it was like Jez is a freaking Olympic paddler. And then there was like two other guys that were like either Olympic or world champion paddlers. And they're like from other countries. And I'm just like, okay, so I don't fit in here. Like I'm from Georgia, and like my highest accolade is like I have coached baseball. Like why am I here? And then I don't know, it works and everybody just gels together.
You get the purpose. The common purpose is the big thing, at least that I found. You get people to work on that common purpose, it'll work out.
I was going to make it its own topic, but since we're here, let's dive into it a little bit. So you just had the one summer at camp. It gets lost when we had 120 staff each summer.
Oh, yes. I did the one summer, and then I've done a couple father-son weekends since then.
Okay. So if you could break it down to maybe 2 or 3 bullet points each, what did you put into camp and what did you get out of camp? Because that seems to be the through line of everyone that we've had on the podcast so far, with the exception of 1 or 2. We all met there and we've all stuck together in some way after that. So what was camp to you in both an intake and an output?
For an intake, I definitely saw camp as just an opportunity to go hang out in the mountains for a summer and then help out with this camp that I knew about but had never gone to when I was a kid. And I knew people that had gone there, and I coincidentally met Neil on my campus, and that's kind of how I got into that. And then the outtake was it was exceptional. Like I went there, I made a ton of friends, hung out with a lot of different people I would have never thought to hang out with. Like if I was just around, if I was just in my college town, probably would never hang out with these people. And then got to learn a lot of new things about myself, and then learn a lot of new activities. Like went there, know nothing about blacksmithing. I was able to blacksmith an arrowhead, and then was working on some other pieces with the guys up there. Went there and hung out with Wolf, and we did some woodworking, and I made my own paddle by the end of the summer. So it definitely the output is definitely more it is what you put into it. If you put into camp, camp will exponentially get back to you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'll let Taylor go first. Taylor, you want to answer the same question?
Man, so input was the number of hours spent. Because, Mitch, you'd walk all over me on this one with your current military schedule. I'm not good with those long days. 14 to 16 hours completely taps me out. So that pushed me on a physical and mental level. But the output was the same. It was reaching out to over 100 fellow peers and then like 600-700 kids every summer, and just watching every bit of effort that you put in be paid back 7 to 10-fold. And just the gratitude from the kids and the recognition from peers, it's still one of the best places that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, for me, it was just an amazing place, and I put it up on a pedestal now because I'll never be able to go back and work there, for a summer. I've done a couple father-son since, but it amazes me to this day that you can wake up at 6 a.m. For when I was a tribal leader, and you can literally run up and down a mountain for 16 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And like you're so exhausted in the day, and then you go down and you hang out with this great group of people in the layer that's obviously underneath the lake, and you just have all these memories of like just small moments, like playing ping pong, at midnight, and the people are truly great. But then like the ability to get up the next morning and do it again. I mean, you wear yourself out, but somehow each morning you're revitalized enough to do it again. It's great.
Yeah, and you brought that was a very good point, because I routinely found myself when I was a counselor, especially being a quote unquote single parent,
right,
when I had an adventure staff as my co-cabin counselor, being up every morning super early, going out, doing activities all day, coming back to the lair, hanging out with everyone, or going and doing something else until like super late at night, sometimes midnight, and then doing it all again the next day. It was amazing.
Yeah, I nowadays it's like if I don't get at least 5 hours of sleep, and if I just feel miserable the next day, and I'm not even doing any physical activity, which is like also makes me miserable. I'm like, God, I just wish I could go run for 3 hours, but then you run for 5 minutes on a treadmill and you're like, I'm gonna die. So it's just a whole, it's a whole different thing. It's by far outside of what I do, writing. It's probably the career that I would have been the happiest with. Right, I'm happy with what I do now, but it's just, there was cleaning up, piss and crap out of a bed at 2 o'clock in the morning because a kid crapped himself. Didn't matter. Like, it's just like, oh, that's cool, because like this happens, and it just was a great place.
Now, Mitch, that's a perfect pivot. Obviously, you're on a great career path now. If you had a mirror universe self, what civilian career would you be in?
Ooh, good one. I would have definitely pivoted after that summer at Fallen Creek to being a teacher. I had a lot of great teachers growing up, a lot of very influential teachers, at least in my last couple of years of high school, that made me really want to look into teaching, but not necessarily something that I wanted to do right off the bat. And then going to Falling Creek that summer and learning how to be a teacher, essentially. You were a teacher to these 10 boys that were in your cabin for anywhere from a week to a month. And then you also went out and taught all these different activities. And just because you had your one activity, like mine was referee, didn't mean I didn't teach kids how to play soccer on the free periods, or I didn't teach them how to go down the rope swing or how to get on the zip line. So you definitely become very flexible as a person. And then I definitely would have, if I didn't go to the service, I would have gone straight to grad school for teaching.
That's awesome. And you brought up another good point too. It's funny because when I first started at camp, I was 18, and you're expected to teach these kids about life, and you're like, I haven't even experienced life yet. Like, I haven't even made it out there yet, and these kids are like looking at you, And, I had 7-year-olds when I was, before I was a tribal leader up in Tuscarora, which was older. But when I was a cabin counselor, I always had like 7, 8-year-olds, and they're just looking. Yeah, they're looking to you, and they're like, they're so attentive to what you're doing at all points in time, and that's it's amazing, because then you start to realize, man, I got to really get my stuff together, because these kids are going to do what I do and do what I say, and you want it to be positive, and it was pretty profound on me for sure in that respect. As far as teachers go, we've had 3 teachers on, Taylor.
Pretty much all of our camp guests have become educators in some capacity. It seems to be the through line there. We've obviously branched off in different career directions, but I found myself now working in corporate hospitality using the same skill set, and sometimes having to use that same I'm talking to a 7-year-old tone of voice with working with certain people. It's that level of politeness and professionalism and restraint applies definitely even outside of that.
On the flip side, for me in construction, sometimes you have to treat people, grown adults, like children, but not in like the polite sense. It's more in like, excuse my language, but you gotta get your shit together, So that's pretty funny. So Mitch, you kind of
coming from on that one.
Yeah, right.
Gotta take these 18-year-olds think they know everything in the world and break them down. And hey, man, follow the directions. We'll get there together. Right.
Hold my hand.
It's hopefully not. Yeah, I got you.
So we kind of talked about your 5 and 10-year goals inside of work. Outside of work, do you have any long-term goals or aspirations that you're trying to achieve?
On my 5-year goals, kind of these were on my personal side. I want to run at least another 2 half marathons, and then run a full marathon in the next 5 years.
Okay.
And then in the next 10, I really want to get into more. I like going to the national parks. In 10 years, I kind of want to try and visit about 80% of all the national parks in the U.S. And then I want to complete a triathlon.
Oh, wow. That's those pretty lofty goals there. Do you have you ever ran a half marathon or a marathon?
I have. In college, I ran 3 half marathons, 3 years in a row, same race. And then I ran a longer distance team run when I was in college.
So you always see in the movies, and I hate to always refer back to Hollywood movies about military because they're obviously wrong in a lot of areas, but did they ever do training like you see where they, make you get all of your equipment and stuff like that and then take whatever 15, 20-mile runs or jogs or whatever?
So we do have a lot of structured equipment type events. One of those is kind of like the every year thing you have to do is a 12-mile foot march. So you get all your stuff on, you go for 12 miles, and you got to do that in 4 hours.
Oh, wow. So you got a pretty good pace.
Yeah. But generally you're only going about with 45 to 47 pounds of stuff. If you're getting loaded up more, they're trying to keep the distance lower. The Army is really good right now on the injury side of it. They were really, really preventative. You do, before all your physical events, you do warm-ups, you do cool-downs afterwards. You do a lot of more smart fitness in a sense, where they're really trying to lessen the impact on your joints because we do a lot of running, but they try to offset that by making it at least at a lower level, the care. We have athletic trainers now.
Oh, wow.
At our level, at a lower level now, where our athletic trainers we generally see 600 people for our unit as a whole. We're not seeing that every day. Right.
So you said 12 hours and 12 miles in 4 hours. A half marathon is what, 13.3 or 13.1? 13.1. So what was your times looking like when you ran your last 3 years there in college?
For my first one, wasn't very great. Got it in I think I was 3 hours and 48 minutes. And then the second year I came back and I got down to 3 hours and 20 minutes. And then when I got down into it, my last year when I was super serious about running, I broke the 3 hour mark. I was at 2 hours and I think 55 minutes of just blistering pace, at least for what I thought was a blistering pace. But it seems like marathon runners super slow because they're like breezing by me, like, hey, passing on your left. I'm like, hey, have a nice run. And then I'm like 7 miles in, like, why are they running so fast still?
Yeah, if I was 7 miles in, I'd be like, there's a stretcher. Where's the stretcher? I need a stretcher.
Here's the next water point. I need to get some more water.
Yeah, no, that is by far one of the most impressive things I've seen people do is the triathlons, the marathons, half marathons, because I'm always in awe about things that, like, yeah, if I dedicated a ton of time, I might be able to do it, but there's things that I've absolutely, I'll put my hand up and be the first one to admit, I can't do that. If I was to go out right now, I could give you a mile, and it's probably about what I was.
More than most people.
Yeah. What were you about to say, Taylor?
Oh, we're both natural-born sprinters, deadly at short distances. I'll take the dwarf route any day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Short distance is all it requires sometimes.
Oh yeah. So, how do you feel like you have changed? Obviously, between middle school and now, maybe even between, like, what was different between you in middle school and high school when you graduated and stuff like that? Like, how have you seen yourself grow over the last 10, 12 years?
So definitely I had a lot more maturing that happened at a little bit of a younger age. When I was in the 6th grade in middle school, my dad left for a 17-month deployment to Iraq.
Oh, wow.
So I was there, obviously going to school and then doing sports and whatever. Also, I had a larger role, like doing chores more in my house. I was there helping clean the house every day, helping do all the stuff that helped make my mom's life easier. And then that kind of has continued. So if I was like, look back at 8-year-old me, like, don't stress.
Right.
Everything gets better. Like, this is only a temporary thing, which is something that I've learned. Like, stress is going to be there all your life. Take it at the heaviest doses as a temporary measure, and then try and get back to where you can manage it. And then if I was to look back at myself right before or when I was in high school, I would definitely tell myself, okay, hey, it's all going to work out. Because I thought when I was going to move to Germany after being in high school for 2 years, like, I was like, man, I'm not going to make any friends. Like, I'm just not going to do anything. It's going to be a whole new culture, new country. Like, everyone's going to speak German. I don't even know German. And then I get there and I'm going to an American high school. Like, everyone else is kids in the military, and they're like, hey, you play soccer? Come over here and hang with us. Or like, hey, you want to do JROTC? Like, come on over here. We'll do this. So definitely, I definitely thought I was a little more stressed out as a person, and just like at least take it slow and live. Essentially, I was always busy with sports and stuff. My focus was always trying to get into college, and then I just wish I'd taken a step back and been like, hey, it'll all work out in the end. Like, no need to focus on the small stuff.
Right.
But let yourself live life a little bit more.
Okay. It's funny you said that. My niece started college this week, and she texted me earlier on this week, and she has some of the same concerns. She didn't go there with her friends from high school because they went to other universities and stuff like that, and you could feel the nervousness, right? And I told her, I was like, hey, just like, first of all, it's your first day, right? It'll get better. You'll have more free time to do what you want to do. But I told her, go to the club fair, right? And go sign up for clubs. All right. What you said earlier about us being at camp and us having that common goal in mind, right? I was like, if you go to the club fair and you sign up for, a club that makes pancakes every other Sunday, you're going to be there with other people that like pancakes, right? And that's what you have in common. And guess what? The conversation is real easy to start at that point. And I was really proud of her. Taylor, you'd be proud of her too. She went there and she signed up for a Harry Potter fandom club and also a D&D club, which I'm really excited for her about, So she after that first week, it's better, right? You now have an established place where I can go meet friends and have, hang out. And you mentioned over there in Germany, it was a whole bunch of kids who were also military kids, right? So you automatically have that in common. So I'm sure that was really nice for you, and it probably put you at ease a little bit quicker than if you had to like go out there and find people to be friends with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I totally get where you're coming with that one, Kev. I actually just got back this weekend from Kansas. I went and helped drop my littlest sister off at college. She's going to my alma mater at University of Kansas. So she was definitely super nervous, but definitely having family around and family to talk to, even if we weren't around, definitely with the nerves. I told her the same things you were telling your niece. I was like, go to the club fair. Like, there are people that like the things you like. You just need to meet them.
Yep. Oh yeah. How many students about do you guys have at KU?
I believe it's about 30,000.
Okay. Yeah, we have like close to 24-ish at Georgia Southern, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find people that have something in common?
Yeah.
And then you go to the club fair and they're like, we have 383 clubs. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's that easy. You just got to look at this list and find something you're interested in.
Exactly. They're like, oh, every little niche and thing you can think of, like, we have a club for it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, do you like reading Japanese comics but only in Japanese? We have that.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because like they're legitimately, and they always pitch that when you're going on tours at universities, and as a high school you're like, the hell is a club? Like I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, oh, it's legitimately like they have a club that just bakes brownies and sells them on campus
Yes.
once a week. And I'm like, every day on the way to math class, I'm grabbing me a brownie for $1. I'm not even part of this club, and I'm excited for this club, you know?
Kenneth, that wasn't a club, and you may want to get tested.
If you had like, you know, one, I'm gonna ask you two things. If you had like one, you know, elevator pitch to pitch the Army or the military as a whole to prospective, you know, recruits, what would you say? And then the second thing is, what just broad advice would you be able to provide anybody coming out of school?
All right, so we'll tackle the elevator pitch first. So if there's anyone that's out there looking to join the military, definitely it provides a lot of good opportunities. You will learn a lot of good skills, not necessarily just for a job, but life skills. If you live like a lot of people live a lot of their lives in the same town, you're going to be transplanted from that. You're going to move to a new place, and you're going to live with new people, and that's going to be alien for a lot of people. You're going to learn how to do your own laundry, and you're going to learn how to make your own food. You're going to learn how to take orders, and then you're also going to learn how to give orders. So you're going to build a repertoire that is kind of, I wouldn't say dissimilar, but is very fast-tracked compared to a lot of civilian jobs, where you might spend a couple of years just being the worker bee. You could potentially, even in your first year in the military, become someone who is helping out more and is becoming a leader, and you're now in charge of someone who is the equal age of you. And then if you want to see the world, the Army can do it. It might take you a little bit, but you can definitely, there's opportunities out there for everything. Well, not just the Army, but the military in general. It'll help instill a lot of good characteristics. The military is very characteristic driven. There's a lot of external motivation when you're there, and there's a lot of internal motivations when you're there as well. So it's not for everyone. That's for sure. There's a lot of people that join that think they want to be in the military, and then quickly find out that, hey, this is not what I thought it was. This isn't what they told me about, and that's kind of how you get those grievances. But, definitely for just general life advice, I would tell people just get out of the house, go see something new. One of the life goals I've made of mine is every weekend that I have free, I generally try and get out and see someplace new. And a lot of it doesn't have to be far, and it can be in the same town. You can go explore a new city park for the weekend. But definitely there's a lot of life out there, and you're not going to get to experience it if you're not going out and doing that.
No, absolutely. That's really good advice. Especially for people, and you know, everyone knows tons of people who are very introverted and like to stay inside and kind of hermit themselves in. But I mean, you can go and get out and not even be around other people. You know? Yeah.
I'm a very introverted extrovert, I like to call it. I love having my alone time, and I love being inside by myself, like in my house. But I also like going out and exploring new things.
That's awesome. That's a good combination. Well, Mitch, I appreciate having you on. It was, for me, it was very informative. I don't know hardly anything about the military and military life. So for me, it was very, very informative. And I can tell you that from the military people that I've met over the years, you're like a breath of fresh air, man. You're in it for the right reasons, and you're a very, very positive person, and somebody who I fully believe is going to make positive impacts on people moving forward.
No Universal Answers to the Universe is an interview series by Taylor Hall and Kenneth Gibbons, which releases on YouTube and all podcast platforms every Monday. If you have any questions or would be interested in being a guest on the show, please contact us at nouniversalanswers@gmail.com or via our Instagram page at no_universal_answers. Thank you for listening and have a great night.